Hello, I'm Coach Ellie Mai and welcome to Coaching Conversations. 7 years ago, my guest described her life as coming crumbling down. She's here with us today to share her incredible journey of overcoming those challenges she faced and how she's transformed her experiences into a thriving business that assists others facing similar struggles. What was it that affected her in such a way? It's something that's happening to 13 million people going through this in the UK at the moment, and approximately 1.2 billion globally. Yet, still, it's somewhat of a taboo subject. What is that? It's perimenopause and menopause. Welcome to my amazing guest, Angela, a fellow coach and someone that's now helping others through her coaching business. Welcome, Angela, to Coaching Conversations. I'm so happy to have you here. Now, is it okay if I kick off by just saying how very little I know about perimenopause and menopause? As a woman of 43, I feel ashamed that I don't know more about this. And in the run-up to our conversation today, I obviously did a lot of research. I watched a lot of videos, video after video after video. And I actually feel a little bit more knowledge, but a little bit more confused, but also a little bit sad, to be honest with you. Is yours a story of hope?
Well, hello. First of all, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very, very happy to be here. And yes, absolutely, mine is a story of hope. And that is something that I am always keen to get across with everybody that I talk to when this subject arises, and all of my clients, because perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause is far from the end. In fact, for many women, including myself, it's the very beginning.
Okay, amazing. So should we go back then? So I said that in your own words, your world came crumbling down. What was life like before then, that turning point?
The first word that comes into my mind when you say that is busy. Really busy. So my life has been 25 years in fashion retail. I was a product merchandising director. And, 25 years in fashion retail is full on. And I loved every second of it. I loved what I did. I was surrounded by amazing people. I was mentored by some beautiful women who had my best interests at heart throughout my career. And I worked in some amazing businesses, and I feel very, very privileged to have done so. But in the run-up to that period, my life had gone through a huge period of change. And so I think for me, I was completely unaware of perimenopause to start with. So I hadn't even heard of the word perimenopause. So I had no idea that was coming. And I think I just was so busy that the symptoms that were starting to arise, I just put down to the stress of my life. And I think that's what a lot of women do.
So during that time in your life then, you were busy, you were on a treadmill, shall we say? Just kind of everything, going one day after the next. At what point then did you realise, hang on, something has changed?
Well, it was very gradual.
Okay.
So I was sort of on a downhill for over 2 years. And of course, mine started right at the beginning of COVID. So I didn't go to see a doctor. I had considered, but literally the first month of lockdown in the March of 2020 was the first time what I can now recognise as a symptom. So I just ignored it. And tried to treat myself. So being open with your audience, that for me was painful sex, lots of UTIs, lots of trouble feeling sore. And so I obviously didn't know it was perimenopause, so I was using, cystitis sachets and thrush creams, trying to treat the problem myself, trying to avoid going to the doctors because everybody was trying to avoid going to the doctors or going anywhere, obviously. So, that was the first thing that came along for me. And then gradually over that 2-year period, obviously we're all going through a major life change. And so when things like anxiety and loss of confidence started kicking in for me, I was just putting it down to everything that was going on. So yeah, it was a 2-year struggle, I would say, with lots going on in between. I also got cysts in my breasts, which luckily were just cysts and they're fine. But I also got diagnosed with endometriosis during that time. So there was lots going on within my body that I was just assuming were related to these other things that were going on. And so there was just nothing in my psyche that made me think of perimenopause until the night sweats.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people listening are thinking, right, okay, I'm listening. I'm suffering with some of these things now.
Yeah.
So what was it about the night sweats in particular that...
Well, it was a symptom that I recognised as being related to menopause. So although I hadn't heard of the word perimenopause, I was like, why am I waking up in the middle of the night literally dripping with sweat? You would have to get up, you would have to wash and change because it was that bad.
And we're talking full body sweats
here. Full body sweat here, absolutely. Okay. Bed sodden, trying to let the husband know, in the middle of the night, I need to change the bed, on some occasions it was that bad. And I'm very lucky that I have a wonderful mum and 2 wonderful sisters that I can share with. And so, of course, I was telling them what was going on for me. And it was my beautiful mum that said, this could be perimenopause. I'm like, what? What's perimenopause? And so, of course, I go and start doing some research. But I went into denial because I was 42 by this point. So I was like, well, I'm too young. I'm absolutely too young to be going through perimenopause. And I have an older sister and she's not going through it. So why would it be happening to me? So I was totally ignoring my mum, like we do, until after I got married in this period, after my wedding, came back from my honeymoon and should have been on a total high, starting a fabulous new job with a brand that I was so excited to work for. And I crashed and I couldn't carry on. My anxiety was through the roof. My confidence had hit the floor. For a job that I'd been doing for 25 years and adored, I suddenly didn't think I could do it anymore. And so I left very abruptly.
How did those days feel like looking back now, getting up in the morning and thinking, come on, Angela, get your shit together. You've got to go to work now. How were you?
It was horrendous. And I think there were some other things in there for me that made it worse. So I love routine. This role was fully remote. And this role was also working for a brand on the west coast of Canada. So I wasn't starting work until midday. So I had the whole morning to wind myself up, to let my mind take over and tell me all the stories that weren't true. And I could just feel it in my body. So that anxiety, and just talking about it to you now, I can feel it. My chest is pounding. I can feel it in my belly. And I would just have all morning waiting to start, and then starting to work and thinking, well, I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, thinking about it now, I don't know how I did it for as long as I did it, and it was literally only a few months.
Wow. And I'm sure that there are thousands of people listening that are going through exactly the same thing now. Mm-hmm. Were you able to talk about that anxiety to someone at the time, or did you feel like you had to deal with it like a lot of women do. And especially at this point in their life, that they're juggling a lot of things, life is busy, that you think, oh gosh, you know, people have got bigger problems elsewhere. It's just my lack of, my lack of get up and go shouldn't be a focus.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is exactly what women are going through. To answer your question, I did talk about it with my husband. I'm very lucky that he is really open to conversation and very supportive of what I do. So yes, I was able to, but I'm also the sort of person that doesn't want to let anybody down, and I certainly don't want to let myself down. So I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. Should I have done? I probably would feel worse now if I hadn't have tried, and I 100% tried to get through it and get through the other side, but I couldn't do it, even with his support. And yes, obviously I had my mum and my sisters too that I could talk about it with, but he was working from home too. It was that time where you know, everybody's working from home. So in late 2021, so he could see it. He could see the stress that I was under. And then I was obviously working into late hours in the evening and going on late calls, and it just was exacerbating everything that I was feeling. So yes, I was able to talk about it, and I'm really glad I had that person in my life that I could, because I felt supported to eventually make the right decision to stop.
So I've got some statistics based on what you said about work there. So a CIPD survey said that 67% of working women experiencing menopause symptoms said it negatively impacts their work. 53%, over half, took sick leave due to their symptoms.
Yep.
And possibly the most shocking one of all, or maybe not that shocking, is that 9 out of 10 of us have never been educated on this. Something that is inevitably going to happen to us, we don't know anything about. How are you trying to change that?
By doing things like this, coming here and talking to you today to spread the word. And things are changing. Different parts of the world are at different stages. So, you know, there is a long, long way to go, but it is positive. Things are changing. We're here talking about it today. You know, that is a huge move on from where I was, you know, five odd years ago of knowing nothing. You know, kids are going to be educated in schools. It is going to be included as part of their education going forward. So things are looking really positive for future generations. But what we've got to do now is reach all of the women out there that are about to go through there. So yes, the majority of clients that I work with are already in perimenopause or even postmenopause. So generally in their 40s and 50s are the people I work with. But I'm really, really keen to reach the women in their 30s because your perimenopause can naturally start in your late 30s. And who knows that? I certainly had no idea.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
On that note then, can we talk about the denial factor? Because let's face it, I don't want to admit that I'm getting older. Who does?
Yeah.
You know? And if it's an inevitable part of aging that this happens to your body, is it natural to want to say, no, not me, not today, you know, I'm going to push it away, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm this, I'm that, it's not me.
Yeah.
How big a part does that denial play in all of it?
I think it's absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. And I'm talking from personal experience. But I think that denial is different for different women. They have different reasons behind that denial. You know, so life is very different. We are, you know, often career-driven women. So, you know, if you want to start a family, you might have decided that you're going to put that off that a little bit longer. And so you might now be in your mid-30s thinking, okay, I'm getting ready, I want to start a family soon. And I'm here trying to tell you that you might go into perimenopause soon. You're not going to want to hear it. And I totally get it. And so, other women, it's not about the family, it's about the aging. And you don't want to admit that you're reaching that point in your life. But it is just a number. And we can't change what our bodies are going to do. We have absolutely no control over it other than what we can do in terms of our fitness and our diet and all of that side of things. We can help from that point of view. So I think denial is up there for everybody. But I think the education will help turn that on its head for women to realise that it's not necessarily a bad thing that's going to come along. And also important to know that although, yes, every woman around the world is going to go through the menopause, 25% of women don't experience symptoms at all. So they will go through the menopause and not even know that it's happened, apart from their periods will stop.
Okay, that's an interesting
So it's
statistic.
not all doom and gloom.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people will be happy
Delighted.
to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I have family members that have been through it and go, oh, I didn't know. I had no idea.
So I was reading up, and there's at least 30 symptoms associated with perimenopause, menopause. And some of them can sound quite out there, like frozen shoulder, itchy ears, just for me, what sounds like the most random things.
Yeah.
If someone is listening now and they're thinking, could this be perimenopause? What should they do in terms of their symptoms? Should they start a list, start putting them together? What should they be doing?
Absolutely. So use a diary, use a journal, use a symptom checker. So you can get in touch with me if you can't find one. I have a symptom checker. I will send it to you. They're amazing to have because it lists most of the symptoms or most of the more frequently discussed symptoms that you might experience. And you can check off what you think you're experiencing. And then, like you said, with the itchy ears or the tinnitus or the dry eyes, you wouldn't associate that with. But when you see them all on a page together and you start ticking boxes and suddenly you've ticked more than half the boxes on the page, a light bulb goes off. Mm-hmm. So it's a real moment of, oh, okay, maybe this is it.
And you said to me just before we started, it could literally be anything from our feet to the top of our head.
Yeah. So we have estrogen receptors all over our bodies, and they're affecting every part of us, including our brains.
My ears are itching as we're talking now.
Yeah, it's unusual for that to happen. Yeah, no, absolutely. It can affect every part of us. And so what's happening when we're going into perimenopause is that our eggs are declining and our hormones are starting to fluctuate. And as your hormones are starting to fluctuate, it's affecting that estrogen getting to those parts of the body. And that's what will start to affect and cause you symptoms.
Mm. So going back to your journey now then, so you were in a job that you should have been loving.
Yeah. Should
have been loving, but you weren't. What happened next?
Well, and it's interesting you said should be loving, because actually I think for me personally, there had been a decline in the love of my career. And what I had realised after experiencing coaching for the first time back in 2012 was that coaching experience was amazing. It totally transformed how I thought about myself, and I just loved it and came away from that experience, came home with my vision board in hand and said to my husband, I am going to do that one day. That was just wonderful. And so as I was sort of going through this transition and realising that I needed to do something else, really, it was sort of by chance. I crashed, I left that role and was left thinking, what am I going to do with my life? I just don't think I want to do this anymore. And my husband said, well, what about coaching? You always said you wanted to do it. Maybe now's the time you have to think about that. And it was like this massive light bulb that went off in my head. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? But of course I wasn't thinking clearly. And within 7 days I was signed up to my coaching course. Wow. And I haven't looked back. So for me, I think there was always something in me that knew I would need a change at some point. You know, what was coming from my career in the last 10 years was my love for people, my love for my team, and how much I wanted to support them and help them grow. So I knew I was moving down that road rather than being really, really in retail forever. And for me, I went on HRT as soon as I managed to get myself to my GP, and I was lucky because I had a supportive GP, and that is certainly not the case for many women out there because our GPs are not well educated on menopause. But at the same time, I started my coaching course, and the HRT helped my symptoms, but the coaching really helped me understand what was going on up here.
Okay. So we'll go back to a word you've said 2 times, if that's okay, just so anyone listening can understand what that crashing feeling was like for you, in case they're at that point as well. Did it happen one day, and you thought, that's it, starting again? Or how did it happen?
No, it wasn't one day. I think starting the new job was the beginning of a very quick downward spiral. So I'd been for months putting these symptoms to one side. Starting the new job exacerbated my anxiety. And that was then a 3-month period of consistent downhill. And I cried every day. Now that is not me. Now I'm quite an emotional person, you know, and I see my family and I quite easily shed a tear if there's something, you know, I'm feeling a little bit nervous about. But for me to wake up and feel this feeling inside, that tightness in my chest, and that, I want to call it nervousness in my belly, but it was more than that. It was bigger than that. It was more than I'd ever felt before. And it was really forcing me to go, I can't, I don't want to. Even though my brain was saying, well, you have to. And that pressure between the head and the body and those mixed signals, I was completely confused. And then I think it was one Friday morning, I think I started the job in the October and I got to the early December, roughly that. And it was a Friday morning and I just woke up and burst into tears and thought, I cannot put myself through this today. And again, I feel like I've been very lucky and very supported through this process because all of my managers in the small consultancy business that I was working for were male. But I was able to pick up the phone to one of them. And as soon as I heard his voice, I started crying, which you don't want to do. And he was hugely supportive, and I just said, I am so sorry. I never intended to let you down, but I can't come back. And I think he thought I meant I can't come in today. And I was like, no, I can't do this. I have to leave and I won't be coming back. And you can probably hear in my voice how emotional that makes me feel saying that.
But incredibly brave, though.
Yeah, now I think about it, yes. But at the time, I felt like I didn't have any choice because doing that, having that phone call and putting myself through that felt easier than carrying on with that pain every day. And then once I knew I had stopped, I could breathe and I could work out, well, what do I need to do now? What comes next? Now, I'm not a person to sit and wallow. So I was proactive. I did get myself straight to my GP. I did something about it and I took action. And that is what I encourage all women to do. Don't sit and worry about it. You're going to have worries. You're going to have concerns. You're going to feel awful some days, but take some action because that is the first step to making yourself better.
So that inaction then of itself, would you say, is exacerbating things?
Yeah, absolutely, because you're not in control. And I don't particularly like the word control, but you feel like somebody else is controlling your life and you have nothing. You're just going with it. And when you do that and you don't feel in control and you're doing something that makes you feel that way in your body, then that, if you let that continue and you let that continue, that is going to lead to a crash. It's going to lead to burnout, whatever that leads to for you, because your body will be telling you. We just aren't always very good at listening.
Why is it, Angela, that we only do something about something when it becomes really, really serious?
Yeah. Well, I think the majority of us live in our comfort zones, whether we realise we are living in our comfort zones or not. And of course, comfort zone for one person will be completely different to somebody else's comfort zone. They don't look the same. It doesn't mean you're taking the easy road. You might still have a very stressful life, but that stressful life might be your comfort zone. And we're just used to that. And it's much easier to stay in our comfort zone than it is to take action and change it. And quite often, we don't believe we can change it because the story we've been telling ourselves for 40 plus years. And so that's just what we believe.
So fast forward then to now. Tell me about your coaching business and how that came about.
Yes, so I went on a bit of a journey with it. So my business is about 18 months old now. I started my coaching journey in terms of going on my first course, and 4 months into that course went, because I was having coaching, so I was learning about myself, and went, oh, maybe I'm walking away from my 25-year career that I absolutely loved, because for all the wrong reasons. Maybe it was just because I didn't feel well and maybe I should be going back. So I did go and test my theory, which I think is really important part of my journey. I tested the theory. So I went back, I found a maternity cover role. I loved it, but I loved the people. And halfway through I was like, yeah, this definitely isn't for me. Coaching is where I want to be. So because I've tested the theory, I am now all in and absolutely love it.
Almost sounds like a scientific thing that you did, going back and testing it.
Yeah.
Oh, so you really do know. Okay.
I really do know, yeah. And because of my journey and because of how I found coaching again, I suppose, it just felt right from the beginning that these are the women that I want to help. So I haven't had to sit long and hard and think about who it is I want to work with. I've known right from the very beginning what this was all about.
So you've not had someone saying, find your niche, find your niche, find your niche.
No, I've known right from the beginning, you know, and I have had to work hard to make sure that that's right and that women do want the support that I offer. But it's really clear now that women do want and need the support that I offer. So, yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what you said, the mind-body connection then, and how you work through that with people.
Yeah. So I think it's really important that when women are coming to work with me, they understand the difference in what I do and the combination of things that I do. So I have menopause consultancy as part of what I do, and that is where we talk together, and there's no coaching involved, but we talk together about your symptoms, your situation, and what you can do to help yourself, both physically and mentally. And, you know, for some women that will include HRT, for some women it absolutely won't, maybe because they can't have HRT, or maybe if that's a personal choice. I'm not pro or against HRT. It's whatever works for you, and we will work around what works for you. But in terms of the coaching, that's where I work on the bigger picture of you, and I tend to work with women over either 9 months or a year. And that's because these things that are going on for you, you've probably been living with them for 40 odd years. These are stories that you've got in your head. These are things that you believe deeply about yourself. And so a short coaching program isn't going to cut it. So I prefer that longer relationship where we can work together, because what we're going to do is find out what's really going on for you. What does life really look like for you? What's going on right now? And where do you want to be? And for some women, that is a journey in itself, just working out where you want to be. And then we work together over those 9 or 12 months to get you working towards that place. And it's a really beautiful journey. But of course, at the same time, we're working on your symptoms. And if you're starting HRT for the first time, that doesn't just happen overnight either. You know, for the first 3 months, it's a bit of trial and error. Is what you're on the right dose of HRT? Is it the right type of HRT? And so for the first 6 or 9 months, you might be changing what you're taking. So when you're on my program, we're doing all of that together, and I can support you through that. And yes, you'll have hopefully the support of your GP too, but you get 10 minutes in a GP's office. You get an hour with me every month, and you also get me on tap between sessions to chat if you've got something going on, if you've got a question you need to ask. So it's a really in-depth look at your life and what's going on, and not just looking at your symptoms.
Because that's what's so powerful about coaching, isn't it? It's that time just to talk about what you want next, what you want out of life, isn't it? And you're giving people that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about that time. I think that is really underestimated. And for some women, thinking about what you want out of life can be a really scary thing to do, you know, especially when you're really busy and you think, oh, I haven't got time for that. But actually, when you give yourself the time and you start to feel the difference that it makes to you day to day, suddenly you crave that time. Suddenly you want to have that time, whether that's with your coaching, whether that's with journaling or meditating or doing some yoga or going for a run or to the gym, whatever that looks like for you. Suddenly you start to crave that time for you to think about what you want.
If Angela was sitting here now behind a glass partition, the Angela of 7 years ago, what would you say to her?
What would I say to her? Not to worry, that you're strong, that you are going to be okay. And really, this isn't who you are. This isn't it. And a big part of my coaching journey, because as I've been going through this, I've continually had coaching and will continue to have coaching. I've done a lot of reflecting back on my childhood, because it's really made me realise who I really am is who I was in my younger years. I was happy-go-lucky. I was a dancer. I was a show-off. I loved being on stage. And through my adult life, I've totally put that in a box and hidden her away. And I'm ready to find her again.
And is that why marriages often break up and people do leave jobs and dramatic changes can happen during these periods, that they are not themselves?
I believe so. I certainly wouldn't want to put, words into anybody's mouth. Everybody's journey is very different, and I think it's hugely important to recognise that. And people go through divorces for all types of different reasons. But I absolutely believe that many, many women out there are in that same position that I was. And don't get me wrong, I haven't had a bad life. I haven't been I put myself in a box. Nobody else has done that. I did it. That was a choice. So I have just now recognised that actually, no, that's not who I want to be anymore. And then when we make choices like that for ourselves, it can upset that equilibrium. People around us don't necessarily expect to see that new person that's coming out. They might not like it very much. But you do have to remember that you are the only one living up here. Nobody else hears what's going on up here. And so it's important that you do what's right for you, and the right people in your life come on the journey with you.
So what's coming across to me is that you're very sensible, Angela, and that you seem to have been able to. Obviously, I wasn't there at the time, and I'm sure it was incredibly difficult. But it seems like you've managed to map things out, and that you've even turned it into something where you're helping other people that are going through it. And by the sounds of it, coaching has helped you a lot along the way as well. And what about some people listening that haven't perhaps got that network, that supportive partner, access to coaching? What do you suggest for those people?
I think it is a really difficult one, but there is lots you can do for yourself. And it depends, if you don't have a partner, have you got supportive family? If you haven't got supportive family, what friends or even colleagues have you got that you can turn to? And if you really do feel like you're on your own, there are amazing support groups out there. So if you're struggling with your menopause transition, and I've talked about menopause, but I mean perimenopause, or you might even be into postmenopause and struggling, go to a menopause cafe. They are all around the country.
Wow.
All around the country. And there are amazing women running these cafes, for free. They're giving up their time to help and support you. And you will find other women that are going through the same thing that you can get support from. You might even make some new friends out of it. There's some amazing online groups as well. So you can just go and search for them and just find the right group for you. Find the right type of people that suit your lifestyle. Are they just talking about the symptoms, and does it feel a bit negative? And that's not for you. Find another one. You don't have to stick with the group that you first find. Just allow yourself to go and speak. But I would say that's the important thing: is admit it to yourself and allow yourself to go and find the help, however that looks, and educate yourself. There's so much information online now. It can be a little bit overwhelming. So, just be clear that what you're looking at is a trusted source. You can always come to my website.
Of
I
course,
promise you it's a
which will
source.
be in the link below.
And yeah, it's just getting the knowledge and knowing that you're not on your own is a huge step forward.
Now, you did touch on the fact that in 2019 that this was introduced as part of the curriculum that's going to be taught in schools. Do you think that in another 10, 15 years' time, it's going to be as much of a, I don't like using the word taboo, but it feels to me that it still is a little bit taboo to talk about it now. Will it be an open conversation then when people from school age have been talking about it?
I hope so. I hope so. And I really do think we are moving in the right direction because, yes, teenagers are being taught about it. Now, if I think about my education, my sex education at school, I really remember none of it. So are the teenagers, depending on what age they're being taught it, going to remember? Possibly not, because being taught about that, you don't necessarily know. But I think the key thing is they're going to be taught it at school. But if they have parents who are in their late 30s, early 40s, and they're going through it, and now they can suddenly relate to their mum who's going through it, or maybe their auntie, suddenly that makes a difference because they're going to stand up and listen because they can relate to it. So at the same time as them being educated, I encourage you, if you are going through the perimenopause and you have children, be open with them about it because they're going to learn, then it won't come as a surprise to them. And that's just going to get better and better and better as the years go on.
And on the note of family then, if you're living with someone, partner, and you suspect that they might be going through perimenopause, menopause, what is it okay to say?
It really is a difficult one because some women are in complete denial and some women do not want to be told or suggested to that they are at that stage of life. So, you know, for a lot of partners out there, I do really feel for you if you are in that position. But I think it is worth trying to open the conversation. And I just want to add, I've had so many men reach out to me wanting to help their partners. And so if you think that your partner does not want to know or is not interested, you might be really surprised if you were to broach the subject, because they generally, all they want to do is get you back. They want you to feel amazing. And so I really encourage the open conversation. But it's difficult to say what they should say because every woman is going to respond differently to that conversation, and only you know how to have it. It might be leave some resources around. It might be leave a website open on your computer or something like that, or mention, oh, we had a menopause talk at work today. That's a really good one. Having the conversation at work is a really good way of saying, oh, we had this today. Is that something that's going on for you?
And interesting you said that as well. In my research for talking to you today, I talked to a lot of people I know that work in some of the big banks, and they have weekly and monthly menopause meetings that anyone can join in on, which for me, that runs a small business, couldn't actually believe. And that in itself is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, there is some brilliant work going on out there. And I'm doing some amazing work with some fabulous companies at the moment, and had a conversation with one business this week, and they have the most brilliant resources available to their employees, you know, and some go much further than others. So some have their own menopause ambassadors or champions within the business, so that you've got somebody that you can go and talk to. And then they also have these cafes, they'll do workshops, you know, they'll have a policy in place. There is some brilliant work going on in this area. But it's not every business, and we need it to be every business.
So you're recommending that even someone that's listening today that even has a small workforce that should really be thinking a lot more about this?
Absolutely, yeah. Just be really aware of who your employees are. And don't forget that menopause can actually happen to any female of any age. So yes, we talk about women in their 40s and 50s. Naturally, it can begin, you know, early in your late 30s. There are women in their 20s and their teens that go through it. And then, of course, you can have surgically induced menopause. So don't assume that because a woman is in her 20s, she might not be going through it, because she might be. So having those resources available, you know, is absolutely a must in my eyes.
Amazing. So tell me, what's next for Angela and your coaching business and helping people going through this?
Well, I try not to think too far ahead, because I like to be really agile and I like to respond to what's going on out there and women's needs. But it is all about reaching as many women as I can. I want women to feel like they can trust me and they have someone they can go to. So at the moment, I do a lot of work in organisations, and I do a lot of one-to-one coaching. As of the end of this year, it is the plan for me to start some group menopause coaching. So yeah, so that's next on my agenda.
Fantastic, fantastic. And in terms of your reach then as well, if someone does want to get in touch with you and work with you, can they just visit your website, have that initial consultation with you? And is it available for men, women, anyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So the coaching is available to anybody that feels the need for the coaching. And I encourage you to get in touch with me to have a free consultation. So that is generally a 30-minute conversation where we can talk about your needs and make sure that we are right to work together. So I will never just assume I'm the right the right coach for anybody that approaches me. And I'm never going to push my services on you. If you feel like I'm the right coach for you, then great. But I will also make sure I feel that you are the right client for me and I'm the right coach for you, because it's, it's a bond, it's a relationship. You're working together in partnership, and it has to feel right for the both of you.
So we started off this coaching conversation by me saying that I hope this was a hopeful story. And I think yours definitely is. And I think in this day and age, with access to so much stuff online, we've got a symptom, we put it into Google. All of a sudden, we need all of these medications. We need this, we need this. So we're our own worst enemy in so many ways, aren't we?
Yeah.
Have you got some advice to people about how to filter through all of that as well? Because like I said, I felt a little bit more confused to some extent watching all of these videos. And I said to you that I would often watch some of these videos that are available online, not to name any names, but that message of hope would only come in an hour and 30 minutes into that conversation. That before then it was, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. How can people filter through all of that without digging themselves deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would suggest to everybody out there, depending on where you are in your journey and how you are feeling, is to not go in and listen to all the videos of the doom and gloom, because it doesn't help anybody. It might make you feel better to know you're not alone, but no, you're not alone. There's 13 million women in the UK going through their menopause right now. None of us are alone. We're all in it together. And I think it's coming back to that, taking control of it for yourself. So yes, you can go and find some resources online, but the best thing you can do is talk to somebody, talk to an expert. Go and do your menopause symptom checker. I think that's one of the best things you can do, because you can help decide for yourself whether you think that's it. And then get yourself to your GP, and go to your GP armed with the information. Know that it can happen to you in your early 40s. Know that under the age of 45, you can have blood tests that will check your hormone levels. And make sure you have more than one blood test to check that they're saying the consistent thing. Don't just have one and let them send you away and say it's not perimenopause when it could be. And if you're over 45, it's all about your symptoms. You don't even need a blood test. It's all about how you feel. So that's where that symptom checker comes in really, really helpful. Just put yourself first is my big message. Put yourself first.
And once someone follows that, putting themselves first, do you think that all these other things become easier?
I would certainly hope so. It can be a ride. It can be a journey, it can be a roller coaster, as they say. So don't necessarily expect to start taking HRT if that's what you're going to do and feel better in 2 weeks. Because you might not. But it doesn't mean you won't be feeling better in a few months or, once you've changed it. So there is lots that you can be doing.
Exercise, diet, sleep.
Everything. It's all about that balance in your life. And I know for so many people that is a really hard thing to find. Nobody's got any time for it. But there are always little mini things that you can do in your day. When you're stood in the kitchen making a cup of tea, take a few moments to do some breathing exercises. There are things you can do. But absolutely, it's really key. Your exercise, your diet, staying hydrated, trying to reduce your alcohol intake if that's a thing for you. They all will impact how you feel. And HRT alone will not work. You do have to think about that bigger picture.
And claiming back time then as well, your own time, whether that's 15 minutes of solitude in a day, 15 minutes listening to a podcast, whether you can go for a walk by yourself. It's that time, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's different for everybody. That 15 minutes might be a walk with a teenager or your husband that you get on really well with and you can have a fantastic conversation, that might be your free time. It's whatever it makes you feel good and is going to re-energize you.
Thank you so, so much, Angela. I mean, I feel like I've learned so much, and I hope our listeners have as well. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can find your website in any links below here as well.
Yeah.
And they can just get in touch with you and organise consultation and then a coaching session should they want to as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. And find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm there every day.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Coaching Conversations. I'm Ellen Mai. This was the amazing Angela. Thank you so much for listening. Please, please subscribe, share this video because the message is very, very important. And the more we talk about it, the more we'll be able to deal with it. Thank you.